Hello, and welcome to PhD Decoded. I'm your host Sanchit Jain, and I'm on a mission to demystify the PhD journey. Join me as we dive into candid interviews with PhD professors and students, where we uncover the secrets, challenges, and triumphs of pursuing a doctorate. Together, we'll decode the complexities of PhD life, from choosing the right research topic to publishing groundbreaking work. Get ready to be inspired, gain valuable insights, and to find the support you need to conquer your PhD adventure. Let's get started and unlock the true essence of the doctorate. This is PhD Decode. Welcome to our podcast. Today's guest is a highly accomplished academician with a BTech from NIT Calicut, an MBA from Strathclyde Business School, and a PhD in Organizational Behavioral Studies from IIM Bangalore. With over 15 years of experience with companies such as TCS and Deloitte, she currently serves as an associate professor at IIM Physical. We're excited to have her here, share her insights and experiences with us today. Please welcome our esteemed guest. Welcome to the show, Anjana.
Thank you. Thank you, Sanjay. Thank you for having me.
So, first of all, the big question: what motivated you to pursue a PhD?
Hmm. There were several motivating factors. The most important one was my desire to do something different with my career than most other people. See, typically in India, we have a very linear way of looking at education and employment. So we start with childhood, then we complete all our education in one block and go till the distance we want to go, and then we go into employment. I have traditionally not subscribed to that view because it assumes that the moment you start your employment, your education stops, which is a terrible way to start working on one's career. The way that has worked better for me is that I have accumulated some level of skills, and then I've gone and applied it in the workplace, and then I have made some progress with it. At some point, I have found that my skills were lacking. I have come back to school to get those skills. So I worked for a few years and came back to school to do an MBA and so on. So after I worked for around 15 years, I figured it was time to do something very different with my life, to take what I know in industry and then combine it with what I don't know, which is academic wisdom, to see what I could, by combining that, whether I could do something different. It's an unusual career track, one that has thankfully served me well so far.
That's wonderful. So, was your experience in learning and development segment instrumental in your decision to pursue organizational behavior as a course, as a area of
Yes, indeed.
specialization?
Uh, Absolutely, yes. And it is indeed the work in corporate learning that kind of triggered the idea of the PhD. The difference between learning in an industry setting versus in an academic setting is that learning in the industry is broad, but learning in an academic setting is narrow but very deep. So it's the typical T model. I realized when I started doing a lot of these training programs that I was lacking in depth, and it is to make up for that shortcoming that I decided to pursue a PhD program.
Wonderful. So, on to a related question. So, before embarking on your PhD journey, what were your perceptions about PhD and academic world in general?
So the in a way, I'm the first person in my family to do a PhD. So there was no real family advice on whether this was a good idea or a bad idea, and I think it has helped me. It was a good thing that I did not have anyone to advise me of what the reality was, because if there was someone, then I would likely have not taken it. I think the perception that people in industry have of the PhD is multifold. See, when I started, my perception was that this was going to be fairly easy, fairly straightforward, required a certain level of focus, an average level of focus. And given my industry experience, if I could do this much in my career, that I could do the PhD as well as a simple, smooth extension of what I already knew, and then take what I knew with my PhD and go back to industry. Clearly, all of those were misperceptions.
So, vis-a-vis what your prior expectations were, you mentioned that you do not have a lot of prior expectations considering you were the first one in your family doing this. So, how did you really find the entire PhD journey?
The PhD journey is a very intense one. I found it very intense. It has its highs, it has its lows. There are some things that the facilitators, like the professors that you end up interacting with, they prepare you for it. And you are expected to figure things out by yourself, including what resources are appropriate for you, who do you need to speak to, who are the leading academics in your particular area of interest, how do you go about engaging them. This takes a lot of initiative and a lot of persistence to be able to identify people that are right for you in the PhD program, and to do what it takes to make the most out of your PhD. Your PhD is, as much as it's very broad, being broad is not a bad thing. It also gives you the ability to tailor it however you want to. So you get from the PhD quite literally what you put into it. So if you are willing to put in a lot of effort, take a lot of initiative, identify top people and then connect with them, and be willing to get a lot of rejections in terms of both your work as well as your communication with them. If that's okay, and you have a thick skin and you are dedicated and committed to the program, there is no reason why good things will not come from it. But if you get into the other part of it, is also true, that it is so broad and nobody is pushing you, so it becomes very easy to become too comfortable. And when you become too comfortable with anything, you don't do it well, and so that risk always exists.
Absolutely. So being super customizable or self-driven has its advantages as well as disadvantages.
Oh, absolutely, I agree.
Related note, what impact did the PhD have on your personal life, like before PhD, after PhD, and during PhD also? So how does your personal life look?
Yeah, well, the number one impact is, of course, that your social life becomes non-existent. So in terms of doing the PhD, there are a lot of times in that during that course when reading is boring, reading is difficult, and you have to push your way through pages and pages. The way it is designed, it automatically focuses you on the things that matter. So that's there. So and then it gives you a sense of what's most important. And for me, it was just finishing this program on time, and having been, and slightly older than the cohort that I was with, it was important for me to not waste any extra time in finishing the program and lagging, because many people tend to do that. Time is of the essence. And so then, it was just family, immediate family members, PhD. That was it for 5 years.
Wonderful. Great to hear that. We would also like to know a little about your work. So I understand you work around gig economy and gig workers. So maybe a few lines around.
Right. Okay. So the interest in the gig economy is because it is all the rage now. Wherever you turn around in the world today, there is artificial intelligence, and being in the area of organizational behavior, one of the natural segues to that is, how does artificial intelligence impact the way we work, impact the relationships that people have at work? Do people have more friends at work, or do they not? What kind of work systems do we have? And how does artificial intelligence change the way we have looked at organizations and the relationships that people form in organizations? One of the outcomes of this AI in terms of organizational relationships is the emergence of this whole new sector of the economy that we call gig work. It's a new idea that earlier, you see, the relationship between employer and employee was dyadic. What it means, it was two-way, and that was it. So the employer will give them an employment letter, and the employee will offer services. Now, the advent of artificial intelligence has created this gig economy where that foundational relationship in itself has changed. So now there's no concept of employer and employee in that economy. What's there is client, gig worker, and an intermediary platform. So this new entrant has now suddenly become a huge power player, and then given the size of the gig economy worldwide and also in India, it is on the rise. And it is high time that scholars pay attention to it. There's plenty of attention to the gig economy worldwide anyway. And one of the things I wanted to look at was how these things were impacting work relationships in India.
So post PhD, what kind of opportunities can a candidate look at? Like what are the post PhD options available?
So there are multiple options. One option is definitely the traditional academic route. Okay, so that's where you will, if you go through, if you complete a PhD in say an IIM, you will try and get a faculty job, a tenure track traditional faculty job in the IIM system, which will where you will join the IIM system as say an assistant professor grade 2, and then move up the ranks from there, and then go all the way from assistant to associate, and then to full professor. There are also other routes. So, for example, you look at someone like me. I come from the industry, so I have around 15 years of industry experience, and it is after that that I have done the PhD program. So I am a little bit older than the traditional PhD candidate. I bring a worldview which is very different from the traditional academic worldview. So now UGC has in India approved the appointment of professors of practice, which is what I do. I'm an associate professor of practice. So we join as associate. So if you come with the industry experience, I believe the requirement is around 15 years. If you come with that level of industry experience and then you do a PhD, then going down the practice track is also, so you can be associate professor of practice and then full professor of practice. So that's another track. Other option for post PhD people is industry, and that again depends on what your PhD is in and which industry you plan to join. Now, the planning that you will need to do though is that if it is good to have some kind of a clear idea of what career you plan to choose, at least as a primary career, by the end of the PhD program, so that when you are doing a thesis, you can select a subject that is most relevant to the field that you are planning to join. So what is important for industry might not be what is important for academics and vice versa. So if your interest is to join industry, you should pick something that is relevant for industry and then go down that path. If your interest is to join traditional academia, then you pick a different path. So the importance of publications and all of that will vary depending on what you choose. Another option, another career option is to look at these think tanks. Think tanks. India has several think tanks. Some of these are sponsored by the government. Some of these are sponsored by the industry. Some are 50-50. And some are just autonomous institutions. Depending on what your area of interest is, if there's a think tank whose expertise aligns with what you have to say, then that's a great opportunity to work with like-minded people and identify parts of work and write reports and all of that that will influence government policy in the area that you have interest. So that's also an option that you should consider.
Great. So in consideration of somebody who's standing at the very nascent stage of PhD, perhaps considering the thesis topic or perhaps about to graduate from both the extreme ends. So how do they take a decision on which of these paths would be important for them or would be right for them? What are the factors that can help them decide this?
Oh, that is a choice that needs to be made long before your comprehensive exam is done.
Okay.
There isn't a single set of factors that goes one way or another. Within 2 years of the PhD program, I think there is enough time for you to determine whether a life in this path is right for you or whether it's not. A PhD will show you to some extent what your academic life is going to look like. My life right now looks very similar to the life that I underwent as a PhD student in terms of the reading load that I have, the teaching work that I have, the interactions with people that. If you like this kind of life, then this is what you do. But if you don't like this kind of life, then maybe it is time to speak to people in the industry, identify a few contacts from there, have a few conversations and try and identify what is important for the industry and see if that is more to your choice. There is nothing stopping you from going and doing a short project in an industry of your interest, seeing if that environment seems to fit you better, and all of that. There are substantial differences in your lifestyle, both in terms of the flexibility that you get as well as the income that you make, depending on what career you choose after the PhD program. The academic career is high on flexibility and comparatively low on income. The reverse is true for industry.
So there is always a trade-off.
Oh yeah, definitely.
In addition to this particular topic and in general, what advice would you give to a candidate currently pursuing a PhD or planning to pursue a PhD?
Planning to pursue a PhD, I think what makes you successful in the PhD is that it's a mind game. What is that mind to succeed in the PhD? That mind is the willingness to push through boredom, is the willingness to sit at your desk and read through stuff that you don't want to read. It is a willingness to put hours and hours of boring and unsexy work in understanding methods that will make no sense to you in the first reading, and all of that. So I think one has to go beyond, a lot of people I have found tend to do the PhD because they like something or they have a fleeting interest in something. And there's nothing wrong with any of that. But liking something and having a fleeting interest in something will not take you through the PhD program. It has nothing to do with like. It has everything to do with a mindset and a commitment to say, I started this thing. I don't care how difficult it is going to be, and it is going to be very, very difficult. Sometimes the difficulty is in terms of the content that you have to deal with, and at other times the difficulty is in terms of the people that you have to deal with. You will find people that you work well with. Some people will really put roadblocks in your way. All of this is going to happen. And to push through that and to finish what you started, which is absolutely not glamorous at all, and to be able to do that within a specified time, and while you are at it, to publish the work that you need to publish, to write the thesis that you need to do the research that you need to do, to put in the extra time to help with the faculty with the teaching, to do all that extra grading, and a lot of mundane, boring work, because your eyes must constantly be on the prize. That's very difficult, and it's only if you have that mind that you should sign up for the program. Because otherwise, at least in an IIM, within an IIM, this is the mindset that will carry you along. If you don't have this mindset, it gets too difficult, and then either you drop out, or if you're not in a position to drop out, you just hang around there. And either way, your loss of time, it never comes back. Nobody loses anything other than you. So if it is not something you are 100% committed to, then you should not be in it. But much like everything in life, the PhD is not for everyone. If this is you, then the PhD is for you. If this is not you, this is not for you. Do not waste your time.
So strong passion and perseverance both are required to kind of get through the program and succeed.
Yes, and the passion should not just be about an interest in the subject. Yes, it's important. Yes, it's important to like your subject, and things become more difficult if you hate what you're doing. Yes, but it has very little to do with passion for the subject. Everything has to do with the mindset of pushing through this and completing this, no matter how bad or boring it gets. And that's the difficult bit, you see. It's all easy to like and dislike topics. Everybody likes AI. Who doesn't like AI? But how many people will actually go push through a PhD in AI? Very few.
That's the question. Absolutely. So, any final parting words for our audience from this session?
Yeah, given that your audience are people that are looking to enter a PhD program, I wish them the very best, and I hope that they see the relevance of paper publication and academic work. I would ask anybody that wants to be a PhD and then later to become an academician to have a clear understanding of what is the role they serve in society. If you do not have a clear understanding of the role that you serve in society, then you should not be serving that role. because now you're
Absolutely.
going to do a shoddy job because you don't understand what is expected of you. The role of the academician is not to just read papers and write papers. Yes, that's an important part of the job. Yes, but the role of the academician has got to be bigger than that. The role of the academician is to look at the problems that matter and to understand them with the depth that a regular industry practitioner does not have the time or energy or patience or intensity or rigor to understand. And then to come up with solutions. Why, sure, you must publish on the one hand, but also to come up with solutions that the rest of the world can use, whether it's about being a practitioner, whether it's about being a student, whatever it be. Whoever is your target audience, you have to be able to speak and articulate and write and communicate with a level of depth and rigor and intensity that the other people in the world are unable to do. It's only then that you become an academician, in my view. That's my view. It's only then that you become an academician. And therefore, in order to develop that depth and the ability to articulate and the ability to interweave across different topics, like across philosophy, organizational behavior, a little bit of economics, a little bit of finance, and all of that at a knowledgeable level, you need substantial amounts of reading and
Right.
substantial amounts of time spent in honing and sharpening your skill. And that's why the mindset to push through boredom is everything.
Well, that was both comprehensive and super insightful. So thank you so much. Thank you for taking out time to be with us here today. Thanks a lot.
Sure.
Thank you for joining us on this enlightening journey through the world of PhDs. We hope you found our interview valuable and insightful. We'd love to hear from you. If you have any questions, comments, or ideas for future episodes, please drop them in the comment section below. Feedback is incredibly important to us as we strive to make PhD Decoded a valuable resource for all aspiring and current PhD students. Make sure you share this video with your friends and family who are pursuing a PhD. Remember, you're not alone on this PhD journey. Together, we can decode the mysteries, overcome the challenges, and celebrate the successes. Thank you for being a part of PhD Decoded community. Keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep decoding the limitless possibilities of a PhD. Until next time.